So, you're looking to build your first FPV drone? That's alright, because in this video I'm going to show you how to get started in building your first FPV drone and break down what each component does. Now, before we start choosing the parts we want to use, it's important for us to decide what kind of drone we're actually building. Like, are we building a smaller drone or are we building a larger long-range drone? This will determine what parts we use and the size of battery we can hold. It's important to understand what you want to build before you actually start making it. Now, there are going to be two main aspects to our drone. That's going to be providing power to our drone for it to fly, and then also communicating with our controller plus video feedback to our goggles so that we can actually operate it. So we're going to need an ESC board, or electronic speed controller board. This is going to be responsible for distributing power to the motors and other components on our drone. And then our flight controller board, which will be responsible for controlling our drone by taking input from other components, such as receiving controls for our drone and also transmitting the video being captured and sending that to our goggles. You'll usually find these as a stack, but it's important to know what each one does. Next is the component that actually makes your drone, well, a drone, and that's the motors. Now, when buying your motors, you're going to see that they're differentiated by a kV value. Basically, this is just referring to the RPM speed that you'll have on your drone. The kV refers to the motor's speed constant. So you'll take the value of the kV, multiply that by the amount of voltage coming from the battery, and you'll have your RPM speed. Now, we can go into a lot of detail about which kV is optimal for your drone, but since we just want to get started, the simple way to think of it is if you have a larger drone, you'll probably want to go for a lower kV. And if you have a lighter, smaller drone, then you can get away with having a higher kV value. For my situation, since I'm going to be using a 5-inch drone frame, I'm going to be using an 1800 kV motors, which should be a suitable value. Now that we've covered the motors, it's time for us to focus on the flight controller board. And for our drone to actually be useful, we need to be able to control it by having commands coming in. So that's where our radio receiver comes in. This will be responsible for taking commands that come in from our controller and allowing us to control our drone. And with this drone, we're specifically building an FPV drone. So we want to see what the drone sees. For that, we're going to be needing a VTX module, or video transmission system. This is going to be sending the view from our drone to our goggles that we'll be wearing during flight. And that feed is going to come from the camera that's on the front of our drone. So we'll choose which FPV camera we want. This camera is just for us to see what the drone is seeing during flight. For the actual camera footage, you're most likely going to be hooking up your own action camera. And lastly, which battery are we going to be using to power our drone? So how long are we going to be flying for and how much voltage are we putting into this drone? So we know what each component for our drone is for. So let's go ahead and hook them up and build our drone. For the rest of the video, I'm just going to be making the actual drone. So chill out, let's build this thing. Alright, so I'm just going to jump in here with a live commentary as I'm building this. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to grab that ESC board and the capacitor that would have come with it. We're just going to get that soldered onto where the power will be. There we go. Obviously the reason for the capacitor is just for the, it's just to smooth out the power coming in from the battery and filter out some noises, so we'll get that soldered there. And once we've done that, we can grab the XT60 cable and just solder it on. Previously I used this, so what I'm doing here is I'm just cutting off the tip, stripping it, and then I'm just going to pre-solder it before applying it. Obviously the reason why you want to pre-solder your cables is just make it a lot easier when adding it to the board, and also just like does things like remove oxidation. So there you go, so we've got that hooked up just there. So once we've done that, we can put that onto our frame. And then once we've done that, we can just go ahead and grab our motors, because that's what we're going to be adding next. And then yeah, what I'm doing here is I'm just measuring them to size, just to where the pads is. Because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go round where the screw is and just have it going back to those pads there, just so it's not hanging out. And then what I'll do here is I'm just going to strip it and then pre-solder it. And yeah, you can kind of go back and forth just to make sure like you're happy with the actual size of it going to those pads. So yeah, that's just me making sure I'm happy with how that sizes up just there, wrapping it around. There we go. So yeah, that's all the 4 motors hooked up just there. So those pads. And then once we've obviously got those motors hooked up, we can move straight onto the flight controller board. So what we'll do is we'll grab the cable, add that to the ESC board, and then obviously connect that to the flight controller board just there. Cool. Then we'll just add that to the stack. And then I think, oh yeah, and then with the preview, I would have showed a different VTX module. With this one, when I made it, I decided to go for a different one. I think that's a tiny tank. Yeah, tiny tank one. And yeah, I didn't have any suitable cables for the receiver, so I'm actually going to use some jumper wires. Definitely wouldn't recommend it. I think I'm going to go back and actually change that. And when I was recording this, the camera did stop recording, which is a little bit annoying. But basically what I've already done there is I've pre-soldered the receiver pads, which I think was obviously 5V on the ground, and I think it was the TX&R2 one. I think so. And I've obviously pre-soldered the camera one, and that's pretty simple. It's just a 5V again, ground, and then the cam one. So yeah, that's just me showing off where I'll be adding the different modules. Just showing where they're going to go. Oh, and that's quite important actually. So whenever you do solder pads first time, no solder on there, it's always good to apply flux to them. The reason why you want to apply flux is it just makes it a lot easier when soldering onto the surface. So if you apply flux and then go to apply solder, it makes it a lot easier. And also, it's also for things like removing oxidation as well. So it's good practice to always apply flux and then solder. So yeah, I've got like a little pen thing that I just use to go over the pads, and then I can solder it there. So yeah, that's me with the jumper cables. I definitely, just watching this back, I'm like, I definitely need to go back and change that to a suitable size. So yeah, and then yeah, that's just me applying the flux and then soldering it on, and then obviously just putting each cable. And then once I've done that, soldering that onto the flight controller board. Alright, and then I've got the FPV camera in its little housing thing there, so that's me just adding it to the frame and then soldering that to the board. And yep, onto the VTX, which is the same process as the receiver, just yet again apply flux to those really small pads. Actually, when I was doing this, they were really annoying to work with. But yeah, apply flux, then solder, and then obviously add the cables, and then obviously add that to the flight controller board. So we're going there. Yep, that's all on there. And then what I'm doing is just with the cables, just wrapping them around. Cool. Cool. And then obviously what I've done with the receiver and RTX modules, I've got some heat shrinks on there. Yeah, the reason why you want to have heat shrinks is the heat shrinks is there to isolate the electronics. So basically just prevents dust and debris going on there, damaging it over time, because obviously your drone you're going to use outside. So yeah, just got some heat sinks there. Just got to move my fat head out of the way because it's in the way. And then yeah, just with the heat gun, just heating it up so it shrinks around the electronics, protecting it there. And then same for the RTX. And then obviously the antenna, you can kind of run it around the drone. So we've got one on the actual arm, and then the VTX one's just coming from behind. Yeah, just using a cable tie there because that's very professional. And then yeah, just before we hook up the battery, I've got this short saver. What it does is just detects for any shorts, so it's just protecting the actual flight controller board. Alright, and I think we're done. Alright, so that beep basically means that we're all good to go. So what we can do now is do the final assembly on our drone, so just get everything screwed and tightened up. And then what we can do is we can hook our drone up to the computer. The software that I use is Betaflight. Just because of how long the video has been going on for, I'm not going to do a tutorial on it. Instead, I'll leave a link to a tutorial in the description. But that's how to build your own FPV drone. So we'll hook up the battery and that is all good to go.